Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chloe and I'm a travel writer and content creator, and today I'm going to be talking all about must-know tips for your first trip to India. I visited India earlier this year in March of 2024, and it was truly a bucket list travel experience, and I really do think that India is such an amazing country that everybody should visit at some point, especially if you're based in the US. It is such a different culture. It's just incredible to see a different way of life and how other parts of the world operate. It's so colorful, the food is amazing, and there are truly so many reasons to visit India. However, I know that it can be a little confusing preparing for a trip to somewhere so different that you've never been, and I definitely had a lot of questions before my first trip to India, so I just wanted to make this video to provide a few easy and quick tips, and this video will be more about the northern region specifically. I visited Jaipur, Udaipur, and New Delhi, and I'll be giving you all the inside tips and things to do in each of these cities throughout the video, but I'll also be covering what to pack, what to wear, and how to avoid the infamous Delhi belly, because yeah, I did get sick when I was there and I want to help you try to avoid it. I'll also talk a little bit about the actual travel experience in getting there, as well as getting around, because the driving in India is crazy and you're gonna just need to be prepared for that. And it's a very long plane ride and it's just like, it's a lot, but it's worth it. So let's get into it. But first, of course, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you want to see more travel content, and follow me on all the social medias at by Chloe Caldwell. I'm so happy you're here, and I really want to help you have the best India travel experience that you can. I also want to share a little bit of a disclaimer, because as a travel writer, I did have a really curated luxury trip throughout India, and so a lot of the transportation and hotels were set up for me. And that obviously makes the whole experience a little bit easier, but I do feel like through my experience traveling in India, I can share a lot of key points and tips that you need to know. And I will say that if there is a time to splurge on a travel experience, it's in India, especially when it comes to the hotels, because the luxury travel industry in India is truly next level. I was like so shocked by the level of hospitality at every single property and the way that they take so much pride in the level of service that they provide. Being in hospitality is one of the biggest industries in India, and so people take it really seriously, and a few of the people that I talked to that were staff at the hotel had gone to school for years, like literally 3 years of schooling just to work in the hotel, so they really do provide like the highest level of experience. The hotels in India are truly beautiful and incredible, and it's like an experience all in itself. So definitely, if there's a time to splurge, it's now. So just to recap, before we get into it, this video is going to cover what to wear, getting to India and getting around, the best things to do in each of those cities that I mentioned, how to stay healthy throughout your trip, and just general tips to know before you head to India. There's a lot to cover, so buckle up, stay tuned, and let's get into it. Here are the top things to know before your first trip to India. As a notorious overpacker and just someone who really likes to dress up and dress on theme when I travel, my biggest question and concern leading up to my trip was what to pack. What do I wear? I know that there are certain customs and general guidelines in India that I wasn't exactly sure like what would be best to put in my suitcase. So if you're having those same feelings, don't worry, I have you covered. Here's everything you need to know. First of all, of course, when you are visiting a different country, no matter where it is in the world, you want to definitely respect the customs and traditions of any place that you're going to, so definitely do your research. It is a more conservative lifestyle in India, especially for women, so a few general rules to keep in mind is that you always want to have your shoulders covered, your chest covered, and usually wear skirts or pants below the knees. So general modesty, which clearly is not my outfit right now, but it's just a general rule of thumb. In the bigger cities like New Delhi or Mumbai, it's a lot more casual, a little more laid back. So you're gonna see people wearing just general outfits that you might see in the US. But just to err on the side of caution and be safe, I just decided to wear like shoulders, chest, and knees covered at all times. So I'll share a few examples on the screen of things that I wore that really worked out perfectly. Think sundresses, long skirts, and if you do want to wear tank tops, because it is really hot, just make sure to either pack or buy a scarf or pashmina when you're there to cover your shoulders whenever you're going into religious temples or anywhere that you might be required to have your shoulders and chest covered. Plus, they're just really pretty and they make for cute pictures. So I bought a pink pashmina when I was there and I absolutely love it. I still wear it all the time. Depending on where you go, you may visit some temples or buildings that also require you to cover your head, and that's where that scarf will really come in handy. A lot of the time there are street vendors where you can purchase a headscarf. If you don't want to do that, just carry a scarf with you around at all times, just in case you're going to need it. And because you are going to be more covered, you absolutely want to get lightweight clothing. So think linen, cotton, and materials like that, because it is the desert and it's freaking hot. And I definitely was glad that I bought a few more linen, lightweight items when I was there. So again, like sundresses are great, or flowy tops and linen pants, and sandals or just like comfortable walking shoes, of course, is important. So yeah, just lightweight clothing, but modest. Another big component of traveling to India that I know people worry about is getting sick, because their food is so rich and full of different spices that maybe your body is just not familiar with, that people from the US, when they go to India, can tend to get sick. I actually made it the entire week when I was there without having any issues, but the very last day I got sick. I threw up. I was so unwell and I had to end up laying in bed all day on my full last day. But I think part of that is because I was being really careful all the way up until the end, and then I kind of got like lenient and I was like, oh, I'm fine, it's the end of the trip. And then I wasn't so careful and that's where it all went wrong. So a few things to help you just prepare your stomach and prevent getting sick when you're there is to bring vitamins, probiotics, Tums, anything you might need to soothe your stomach. It's also a good idea to bring lots of hand sanitizer, bring a mask if you need to. For instance, in the New Delhi spice market, the spices like are so in your face and so strong that if you're like unfamiliar with those smells, it can be really intense. So bring a mask if you're worried about that, or just put your scarf around your face. Also closed-toed shoes for the most part, and you might even consider bringing your own utensils if you're gonna be eating like street food and out and about during the day. And again, like despite getting potentially sick or whatever, the food in India is incredible. Like I still think about it all the time. Ugh, all of it is so amazing, and it's all very like rich and healthy and like lots of vegetables and stuff. So definitely indulge in all the food that is enticing to you, but just be careful where you're getting it from. If you're really worried about it, honestly, the best places to eat are in like nice hotel restaurants, because the more kind of luxury restaurants in the hotel properties are going to be extra cautious about the ingredients or like the water that they're using. So just keep that in mind, but obviously indulge in the food and bring all the meds that you might need. Getting around India. It might be a bit of a culture shock when you get out of the airport and you get your car and you're headed into the street, and it is truly organized chaos, like honking constantly, hundreds of cars ramming into the intersection, but somehow they all are so expert at driving there that it works out somehow. Absolutely do not get a rental car in India, and definitely rely on a car service, because it's probably just so dangerous for anyone who's not equipped for that sort of driving environment to do that on their own. So a lot of the time hotels will offer car services, so definitely check with your hotel to see if they offer that, or opt for a third-party car service to get you around. It is truly necessary. And once you're into the cities, if you get dropped off somewhere, obviously there's the motorized tuk-tuks, which are so fun to ride in, so bring cash for those. And those will probably be honestly the best way to get around certain areas in different cities. So yeah, there's different forms of transportation, but don't try to get around on your own. I didn't take any trains or anything when I was there, so I only had like private car services and then some tuk-tuk rides throughout the cities. So I can't really speak to the train travel, but I think no matter what, it's best to just opt for a car. So again, add that into your budget, plan for it ahead of time, save for it, and get a driver. And the other good thing about having a car service is that you kind of have a personal tour guide when they're driving you around, because our driver always would point things out when we drove by and kind of told us about the history. It's just nice to have someone that can get you places and also tell you a little bit about their home city. Obviously, getting to India is going to be different for everybody depending on where you're based, but no matter where you're coming from, it is going to be a long travel day. My travel day both ways was literally 24 hours, and I had a layover in Turkey both ways, and I flew with Turkish Airlines, which was great, amazing airline, but I did have some delays, and therefore I was like so close to missing my second flight. They lost my luggage, I got it back, it was fine, but it's a long travel day, so you need to prepare for that. I didn't realize this because I meticulously packed to get everything in a carry-on, but certain airlines have rules about even how much the carry-ons weigh. So I think it was like 17 pounds was the limit, or 20 pounds or something. So I had to end up checking my carry-on. So if you really don't want to do that, just keep that in mind and really pack light. Again, you don't necessarily need a lot for India depending on how long you're there, and you'll probably end up buying some street clothes, and just wear those lightweight pieces and pack light if you don't want to check your bag. And again, if there is a time to splurge on either a business class flight or to use your points, it's on a massive flight like this to the other side of the world. So just consider that option. But a few ways to get through a long flight is just to bring your toiletries and freshen up throughout the flight if you need to. Bring a change of clothes so you can feel refreshed when you land. Bring an eye mask so that you can keep it dark if you're trying to sleep. Compression socks. Just do whatever you can to stay comfortable. Honestly, pop a NyQuil and a glass of wine if you need it. Okay, I'm not a doctor, I'm not providing medical advice, but sometimes I do that and sometimes it works. Okay, a girl needs to sleep. So just do whatever you need to do to get comfortable and sleep on the flight so that when you land, you can get right into the tourism of it all and not worry too much about jet lag. I will say that being in India compared to California, where I'm from, was really nice with the time change because I think it was like exactly 12 hours. So it almost completely flipped my schedule on its head to a point where I didn't have as bad of jet lag as I would have in Europe, and it made it easy to like communicate with people back home because we were on opposite hours and it just lined up well. So I don't know, I didn't have too bad of a time with jet lag in India, but obviously again, it depends on where you're coming from. Also, some things to know before you go to India is that the country is massive. And so unless you're spending months there, you're not gonna see it all in one trip. Like I am already dying to go back because there's so much I didn't get to see and I would love to see. And I literally only hit like a tiny portion of the country and I would love to see the southern part. So just know that it's huge and every region is quite a bit different. So do your research again on like just weather, customs, all of that, depending on where you're going. So now let's get into the best things to do in a few different cities. I visited again New Delhi, Udaipur, and Jaipur, and they were all incredible and so unique in their own ways. So let's start with New Delhi because that will probably be where you're flying into if you're coming from the US and you're staying in this region. New Delhi is the political center of India, so all the Capitol buildings and diplomats go there, and it's kind of like a corporate city, but there is still so much to see and it's so bustling and so cool, and there's so much history there, so definitely spend at least a couple nights in New Delhi exploring. I stayed at the Leela Palace Hotel in New Delhi, and this whole trip that I was on was sponsored by the Leela Palace, so I stayed at several of their properties, and I'll give you some insight onto each of them. They were all amazing. Like truly, I can't even explain how awesome they were, but the New Delhi one was definitely kind of like corporate vibes, but super, super nice and fancy. Had a couple of amazing restaurants, and actually I believe that one of their restaurants was voted like top 50 best restaurants in the world, and they have like a very expert culinary team, so even if you don't stay there, definitely go and visit some of their restaurants. Anyway, I stayed at the Leela Palace, New Delhi, and they organized the car service for us. So again, check with your hotel. They can probably pick you up from the airport. But let's get into the things to do. So an absolute must in New Delhi is the Gurudwara, and that is a Sikh temple. It is a stunning, truly beautiful, massive temple in the middle of New Delhi, and it's of the Sikh religion, and that religion is, I don't know too many details about it, I don't want to speak on it, but mentality of it and like the people are incredibly generous and giving. So basically anybody can come walk into the temple at any time and see it. And they also have a whole section where anybody can come to the temple and get a hot meal, no matter what their religion is or whatever. So they're serving meals. All the people who work there are volunteers. It's just like a really beautiful, generous religion and organization. And so to see that is really beautiful. Walking in there is truly awe-inspiring. It is just like beautiful, like white marble buildings with these huge golden domes on top. And then there's like a full holy water fountain. And then you can walk through the temple and observe the worship. Obviously be very quiet and respectful and just kind of like observe from the side. Do not disrupt or even get too close to the people who are actually there to worship. And this is actually the most prominent Sikh temples. People from all over come to see it and worship there, and it really is just a must. It is stunning. And that's one of the places where you do need to have your shoulders and head covered. So bring a scarf or get one outside on the street before you go in. And what I just truly loved about this experience is that they are so open to volunteers. Anybody can volunteer there. So me and my group went into the community kitchen and actually got to sit and volunteer with the people making roti, which is a traditional Indian bread. And it was just like amazing to really sit there with the women sitting on the ground, just like folding bread and serving their community. So that was a really special moment. And if you're able to do that, I definitely recommend it. You're also going to want to spend some time in Old Delhi, which is obviously the most historical part of the city. And it's also the craziest, like truly just cars, tuk-tuks. It's so crowded, but also that's part of what makes it so amazing. I will say like it definitely can be overwhelming, especially if you're not maybe comfortable in like lots of crowds. It's a stimulation overload based just from the smells, the sounds, the just crowds of people, but it is definitely part of the experience. So get a tuk-tuk and ride through Old Delhi and go to the shops, shop around, and just kind of like wander and see where that takes you. And then once you're done with that, go to the Old Delhi Spice Market, which actually is the biggest spice market in all of Asia. So obviously that's a must see on your New Delhi itinerary. The New Delhi Spice Market is basically just like miles of bags of spices bigger than my whole body, filled to the brim with peppers and different nuts and turmeric and all the good things that make the Indian diet. And again, the smells like are overwhelming. I was sneezing and stuff, so just bring a mask if you need it, but it is just so cool to like walk around there and maybe even try some of the different spices. And after you're done just exploring the bustling streets of the Old Delhi Spice Market, which by the way, getting out of it is gonna be kind of a nightmare. It's so crazy, but if you can wave down a tuk-tuk guy and like bargain with them, but again, that's part of the experience. And honestly, the Old Delhi Spice Market, I think, was one of my favorite things that I did throughout India because it was such a culture shock and something like I've never experienced before. So for your next stop, head to the Jama Masjid Mosque. And I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, so I'm so sorry, but the Jama Masjid Mosque is a 17th century huge all red mosque. It was built in the 1600s and it still remains one of India's largest mosques. So Muslims and just people from all over the world come here to experience it and to see it. It does have a little bit stricter of rules on what you can wear, so you probably will have to rent a big robe that they gave all the women to put on. So you didn't have to cover your head, but it was like neck down, fully covered with the robe. There are also certain parts of the mosque where women are not allowed, but to even just see all the structures is pretty amazing. I also loved the Dili Hot Market, which is basically a huge kind of street fair swap meet style market that has artisans and food and clothing from all different regions of India. So you can kind of get a sense of like the different art and styles and food from different regions across the country, which is really cool. And I actually, because my luggage got lost, I didn't have anything to wear, like literally had nothing but my toiletries. So I ended up having to go there and I found like a little outfit, which actually turned out to be so cute, as you can see. I was really happy with it, but it was cool to just see. Like I had to go there to get clothes to have, but it ended up being really cool and there was tons of souvenirs and pashminas and scarves that you could buy. So definitely recommend going there as well. These are just a few of my top recommendations to do. There is so much more to do in all of these destinations than what I can even give you, but I only had a limited number of days in each city. So this was basically like a full one-day itinerary that we kind of rushed through because we didn't have a lot of time, but you could spread this out over a couple days and take your time and really take everything in. But there's so much more to do than I could probably even comprehend or share. So these are just my top recs. But everything that I did see, I actually went and saw with a tour company. It was called No Footprints New Delhi, and they specialize in unique and really hands-on tours. So I did the 5 Senses tour, which obviously makes sense, all the smells and sounds and the spice market, and it just really gives you an inside look at India's top tourist attractions, but really up close and personal. So that was really amazing, and through that tour, we had a personalized tour guide that came with us everywhere and told us all about the history and different things and all the facts to know about each location, which was really helpful. And I think it's better to do it with a tour guide that way anyway, because it's hard to really research and learn all the things that you need to know when having a tour guide just helps you kind of get all the facts from someone who actually lives there and can, you know, give you all the inside scoops about all the places that you're going. But No Footprints tour was amazing. I definitely recommend. I'll link them below so you guys can click and check them out. It's hard to say which city was my favorite because they truly all were so different and unique in their own way, but this next city really was a destination that I'm excited to hopefully go back to one day, and it was truly just like beautiful. And that was Udaipur. Udaipur is known for its man-made lakes that these royals created back in the day. And the biggest lake in Udaipur is called Lake Pichula. And there's actually a few hotels that are right on the lake. And there's even one literally in the middle of the lake. And this is definitely the best place to stay if you want that sort of like really cool lakeside experience. When I was there, I just kept thinking how this is almost like the Lake Como of India, except much smaller, but still it kind of had that luxury vibe. It's actually a really popular destination for Indian weddings because it's so pretty. Obviously, it's like right on the water, and you're not going to find a whole lot of that throughout India. So it's a popular destination for beautiful luxury Indian weddings. So that's how you know it's a good place to visit. The 3 hotels on the lake are the Leela Palace Hotel, which I stayed at, which was truly incredible. Probably one of my favorite hotel rooms I've ever stayed in because it was just so pretty, and I literally like woke up to a view of the lake every day, and it was just wonderful. Then there's the City Palace Hotel, which actually was and still is an actual royal palace. So that is really cool if you want to get that sort of like royal experience and literally stay in the rooms that like the royals owned. City Palace is a hotel. Half of it is a museum that you can see, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then part of it is actually still where the royals live and operate today. So that's just really cool, and you could stay there, and it's right on the lake. And then the hotel that's literally in the middle of the lake is the Taj Lake Palace, Udaipur. And obviously that's like its own really cool experience. I don't know about the City Palace, but at least for the Leela Palace Hotel, you can only get there, I guess you could drive up, but the main way to get to the lobby is through a pontoon boat ride, which is just so cool. Like the only way you can get to your hotel is through this boat ride. There's always a musician on board that's like playing music for you while you're back and forth on the boat. And again, even just getting to and from the hotel is its own experience because you're out in the middle of the lake looking at all the views of the coastline. And it's a little lake, but it's still so beautiful. Lake Pichula, definitely recommend staying right on one of those hotels. Once you figure out where to stay in Udaipur, it's time to plan your itinerary. And there is a lot to do in Udaipur. It was kind of cool because I feel like it's maybe a little less popular among United States tourists, but it seemed like there was a lot of Indian families and tourists there. So it's kind of like a destination within the country, which is cool. The number one thing to do in Udaipur is definitely take a tour of the Udaipur City Palace. It's a massive complex, and what's crazy is that it literally was built over 400 years. Like this building took 400 years to build. That's how big and beautiful it is. And it had more and more contributions from multiple rulers of the Muar dynasty. And again, you can walk through the City Palace as if it's kind of like a normal museum experience, but we also had a guide for this, and I really enjoyed it because again, it can just like really give you everything you need to know without having to like read the plaques on everything or missing any of the cool and important details. And it is just kind of crazy to see how the royals throughout at least Rajasthan, which is the region that Udaipur is in, lived back in the day and how extravagant it was, and just like the way of life that they lived back then. And I love Indian architecture because of course it's like so grand and majestic from the outside, But then on the inside, it was so vibrant and colorful. You can really spend several hours or even a full day here just sort of wandering the halls, seeing the different exhibitions and the art. Truly so much. And the Udaipur City Palace is actually the largest palace in Rajasthan. Another thing I loved in Udaipur was the botanical gardens. And these botanical gardens were used by the royals back in the day. It was like their leisurely grounds where they enjoyed all the florals and greenery and fountains. It's very extravagant. And now people can come here just to explore and hang out. I loved it because there were a lot of locals here just lounging in the grass in the shade, because of course it's like so hot that they could go relax with their friends in the shade. And it is a really nice place to kind of go cool off in the afternoon because of all the amazing greenery. It brings in a lot of moisture and coolness. And it's just, again, cool to see like the extravagance and design of all the fountain structures, and it's just beautiful. So definitely add that to your list. Go there after the City Palace. And then right across the street from the Udaipur Botanical Gardens, there are shops. So this is actually where I got my pink pashmina. There are just a lot of different like local shops that you can go into. We also went into a jewelry store, like a very fine jewelry store with beautiful diamonds and things. I wish I could have bought everything there. There's like street vendors and things like that. So a good place to just walk around the shops there and get some souvenirs. I will say that going to certain parts of India, you're gonna need to be prepared for people to like come up to you and try to sell you stuff. They can be pretty aggressive about it and it can feel uncomfortable and it's like hard to say no, but just be ready for people to like approach you trying to sell you things, and be confident in your responses of saying no if you don't want it. There are also really cool art galleries that you can see if you want to take home some traditional Rajasthan artwork. It's a good city for getting all your souvenirs and shopping. On to the last city, which is a popular Indian tourist destination, and that is Jaipur. And it's coined as the Pink City. And if you know me, pink is my favorite color. I absolutely love pink. And this was also a very like lively and fun city. So again, it's so hard to choose which is my favorite because they genuinely were all so unique. But Jaipur is known as the Pink City. It's known as the Pink City because in 1876, Maharaja Sawai Rams, the ruler at that point, painted lots of the buildings pink to welcome Queen Victoria's son, Albert Edward, the Prince of Wales, to India. And pink is traditionally associated with hospitality in India. It was nicknamed the Pink City, so I was super excited to explore. Again, I stayed at the Leela Palace, Jaipur, and you guys, this is like the epitome of luxury. I've never stayed in a hotel room like this or experienced the level of hospitality that I have here. Obviously it depends on like what kind of room you get, but I was in these like incredible villas, you can see here, that were just the truly nicest hotel room I think I've ever stayed in. It had a private plunge pool, it had a day bed, and just incredible decor on the inside. And those rooms came with like a personal butler, which like I was like, I don't know how to use a butler, but they were so amazing and helpful and literally are there for whatever you need. Definitely recommend staying at the Leela Palace. But there are also lots of other hotel properties nearby. All of the resorts are a little bit outside of the main area of Jaipur, so they're a little bit of a drive away. And again, you're gonna need like the car service, but I'm sure that the hotels can organize that for you from the Jaipur airport, which I guess, by the way, we flew from New Delhi to Udaipur, flew from Udaipur to Jaipur, but probably gonna want to take flights to each city to make the travel days quicker. I think that the flights are pretty affordable because they're all like about an hour long from each other. And again, either organize it through your hotel or opt for a third-party driver slash tour guide to get you around Jaipur. So let's get into the best things to do there. The palaces in India are like the top things to see. The big beautiful buildings are of course the #1 tourist draw, and Jaipur is no exception. So first thing to see in Jaipur is the Amber Palace, and this is a magnificent like architectural marvel, and it just offers you a glimpse into the area's rich and beautiful history. So this is a 16th century compound, and again it was another like royal home, and it's located up on a hill, so not only are you seeing this massive beautiful building, but you're also getting a view of the area down below. And it's constructed of red sandstone and marble, so again it has those kinds of colorful architectural elements. It's another one of those kind of museum style places. You really get to learn a lot about the history of the area. So another palace in Jaipur is the Jaipur City Palace, and this was so beautiful. This is where like the pink part of the city really comes to life. So the main sort of symbol of Jaipur, which you've probably seen on postcards, if you look up the city on Google, you're gonna see pictures of this. It's the Hawa Mahal, which means Palace of Winds. And it's this sandstone structure that's known for its like honeycomb design. So it kind of like stacks up like that, and it has little windows all over it, and it really just like creates this building, but it almost looks flat. So it's just like really striking, and it's kind of the symbol of the city. So you definitely have to stop there. And this is actually a part of the Jaipur City Palace on the other side. I think it's still a residence of the royal family that operates out of Jaipur. It's just another really grand palace, big stone structures and beautiful colorful paintings. So again, no matter what city you go to, the city palace is going to be definitely one of the main things to see because they are all so grand, and you can really get guided tours and an inside look at the history and culture of the city today, and as well as its history. The next one is a really fun one, and that is the Galta Ji Temple, also known as the Monkey Temple, and you can probably guess why. This is a sacred Hindu pilgrimage, but it has kind of been totally overrun and taken over by monkeys. So you'll see ancient temples and structures, but you're also going to be surrounded by these crazy little monkeys that are going to be like running around, coming up to you to try to eat your food. There is a man who operates the entire facility, and he's in charge of everything, and he gave us like fruit to give the monkeys. They were crawling all over us, but definitely do not interact with the monkeys if you are not with a trained professional who is there to help you, because they can be a little aggressive and you don't want to give them anything that's unhealthy or mess with like their habitat, I guess. The day I got sick was after we visited the monkey temple. Not sure if that was part of it, but just like bring your hand sanitizer, because it's pretty, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of gross when they're crawling all over you, but it's also a lot of fun. So just keep that in mind. And if you don't want to touch them, do not. Just go and observe and watch them play and live and do their thing throughout these beautiful ancient structures. Even if you don't stay at the Leela Palace Hotel in Jaipur, you absolutely need to make a trip there for probably one of the most incredible dining experiences you can find in India, and it's actually currently the only restaurant of its kind, and that is the Mohan Mahal restaurant, and it's located within the Leela Palace Hotel. The restaurant is inspired by the Sheesh Mahal, which is located in the Amber Fort and Palace. It was a pavilion completely covered in small glass pieces that a king created because back in the day, queens were not allowed outside. I know, but they weren't, and the queen dreamed of seeing the stars, so he brought the stars to her by creating this room just completely covered in these little glass pieces that reflected light off of candles, and this whole restaurant is modeled off of that. So it's decorated with 350,000 pieces of cut glass, and this is using the traditional tikri technique, which is those little like mosaic glass pieces. And what I loved about this restaurant that I thought was just like so cool is that there is literally zero artificial light in the restaurant. The entire restaurant is completely lit up with just like tons of candles. So there's candles on the walls, and then there's like a full line of candles in the middle of the restaurant. Very dim and moody, and the light is just like sparkling off the glass, and it's so cool. And then the actual restaurant is very intimate. There's only 2 dining sessions per night. So it's like a tasting menu basically of traditional Rajasthan dishes. There's probably like 10 tables. There was like a big table in the back, and then more like smaller dining tables for like 2 to 4 people. It's really small, and there was only 2 dining sessions per night, and I think they were each like 3 hours long. Definitely make a reservation and book that if you're planning to be in Jaipur, because that's still easily one of my favorite dining experiences that I've ever had. So it offered a tasting menu of authentic Rajasthan royal cuisine, and on that note, let's get into the foods that you absolutely have to try throughout India. I'm just gonna read you guys off a list of some of the traditional Indian foods that you absolutely have to try. Butter chicken, okra, prawn and coconut gravy, dal. And dal was actually like my favorite. It literally is just like steamed lentils, but for some reason it is like so good. When you pair it with like fresh naan or roti, like. Another dish I really liked was pan puri, and it's like this little tiny like bread cup that has some like veggies and stuff in it, and then you take a shot of this like sauce and you pour it into this little bread bowl thing and just like eat it all in one bite. And I think probably one of my top favorites in addition to the dal was papdi chaat, which is like an Indian snack that combines crunchy crackers, vegetables, yogurt, and tangy chutneys. So it's kind of this like yogurt dish, and it's cold, but it was like really sweet and crunchy, and something about it was like so delicious, and I ate it like every day. Honestly, I feel like there is still so much more to share about the culture and just the things to do and eat. This is really just a video scratching the surface, giving you a few quick highlights and tips to make your India trip the best it can be. I'm just gonna add in Mumbai, and obviously the Taj Mahal is one of the must-see like wonders of the world. I sadly just like wasn't able to make it over there, and I definitely want to go back and see that. So just like add that to your itinerary, okay? Do like a couple nights in Mumbai and go see the Taj Mahal. But other than that, my trip was like truly incredible, and definitely one of the trips I'm gonna remember forever, and I'm so grateful to have experienced. It's definitely a bucket list destination. If you have any additional questions or comments, let me know below. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at by Chloe Caldwell for more travel tips. Save this video for later, share it with your friends, and stay tuned because I have some really big travels coming up, and I can't wait to bring you guys along. But I hope this video was helpful and provided you with just a little bit of information and helped you feel a little more prepared for your trip. You're gonna have the time of your life. If you go to India, let me know how it goes, and I'll catch you next time.